is Micah, and welcome back to my channel, and a happy belated Father's Day. So, today we're going to be talking about 10 awesome book dads. So, this could be biological fathers, this could be adopted fathers, we could have some found family, just any character being a father figure to another character, really healthy father relationship. And there will be spoilers in this video because I'm going to want to talk about some important plot points for some of it to kind of really thoroughly explain why is this guy an awesome book dad. So just spoiler alert ahead, I have the books that I'm going to be talking about posted in the description so you can check those out and be like, ooh, that one is next on my list. I don't want anything. I don't want anything spoiled, so if you hear me say the book, you can, skip a couple minutes or exit out, whatever works best for you. Okay, let's get into it. And by the way, I have the physical copies for some of them, and some of them I don't. I recently, me and my husband bought a new house, and I've been moving things over in small amounts, and books is one of the things I've been moving. I have a lot of them, so I have half my books at this house and the other half at the new house, so sorry that it's not all, hardback, or that it's, physical copy, or that it's not, thumbnail in the corner. Sorry. All right, at number 10, we have Angus Tuck from Tuck Everlasting. So, and to be honest, this is kind of a bit from my memory of the movie. That's what I watched first as a kid. I watched that movie all the time, but I have read the book several times. So Angus Tuck, he is a very soft-spoken man, and when we first meet him, it's kind of scary because our main character, Winnie, she's being held with the Tuck family against her will, but Angus Tuck is very clear. He's like, I have no intention of hurting you. I just need to talk to you a bit so you understand before we can let you go home. And it takes Winnie a while to figure out what he's talking about. But then we find out that the Tuck family is immortal. They are immortal because they drank from the spring in a tree, and they're trying to make sure that Winnie doesn't tell anyone else about the spring or about their family. So Angus Tuck, because it's kind of like a Victorian time, like early 1900s, where there's very strict roles for everyone in high society, and that's what Winnie's family is from. So, fathers and mothers, they only have a certain amount of involvement in their lives. But Angus Tuck, he is the type of person that parents head on, so he starts forming this kind of pseudo father-daughter bond with her a little bit. He's very kind. He wants her to express herself and be happy. What really sets him apart is a conversation he has with Winnie. And he says, because she's thinking about drinking from the spring, and he has this heart-to-heart with her about how the Tucks live is not how it was meant to be. Right? People are supposed to move and change and die. And that's sad, but that's how it's supposed to be. And how the Tuck family, as he calls them, stuck. And he says he doesn't want that for her, and, kind of think of all the things she would give up. And then we find out that conversation with Tuck really influences Winnie's decisions later on. So I think, because he has two sons, and Jesse, one of his sons, is kind of into Winnie, but he does take Winnie's well-being into account first over, his own son. He thinks of Winnie as a person and what will be best for her. Okay, we have number 9. This is going to be Walt Andrews from Beach Read. So this is going to be a controversial choice for a couple reasons. So the first thing is we never actually meet Walt Andrews. When the book opens, his daughter January is moving into his beach cottage that he used to share with his mistress, right? So that's already a red flag, right? And then we find out that he's dead. He passed away a couple months ago. Now, the reason I have him on this list is that, January's going through a lot. First of all, she's grieving her father, and she's mad at him because she found out that he was cheating on her mom a couple years ago, at her father's funeral. But throughout the book, we hear her talk about her dad and how a wonderful dad he was, how he inspired her, how he spent so much time with her. And January's a romance writer, right? She writes romance novels, and she got that inspiration for how her dad treated her mom. So even though he did cheat on his wife, there was moments where he treated his wife with a lot of love, and that inspired January, and that set up kind of until she found out her dad was cheating on her mom, that set up some healthy ideas of what a relationship should be. And then towards the end of the book, she finds letters that her dad wrote to her. And, as someone who has lost a parent, like, it was such, like, that moment in the book is so heartfelt. I was crying, but he's writing all these letters, and you can tell that he just loves his daughter so much. And he even writes, he's like, I'm cheating on your mom, and I messed up. Like, it's the stupidest thing I could do. I shouldn't have done it. And we kind of, it's that debate that we can have parents who are phenomenal, but they're maybe not the best partners for our other parent or for other people. They are people, they make mistakes. And that really helps January kind of get past, not past her father's death, but all the things that she found out about her dad that have been holding her up and have really just been, holding her back from moving on in that aspect. So you can just tell just by the way he wrote these letters and the way January talks about him that he was an awesome dad. And that even though he, at times he sucked as a husband, he was a great father to her. And that just touched, that touched something in me. So that's why he's on this list. Okay, number 8, Atticus Finch from To Kill a Mockingbird. So we've got a classic here. Now, I know like 10 years ago or something, there was a sequel that was written and released for To Kill a Mockingbird, and I haven't read it. But I have heard that there was something about Atticus where, it really kind of destroyed all of his character traits into Killing Mockingbird. So I'm sorry for those of you who read this and those of you who are like, what are you thinking? He's awful. I'm basing it just on To Kill a Mockingbird because I haven't read the other book, the sequel or prequel, whatever it is. And there are problems with To Kill a Mockingbird. I was an ELA teacher. I taught it. It has been taught to thousands, maybe even millions of American students at this point in, high school or middle school. But the thing about Atticus, and like I said, there's problems with To Kill a Mockingbird, but I'm focusing on his characteristics as a father. He teaches his daughter Scout really, really important things. And one of the most important lessons he teaches her is about perspective. I think the quote is, you have to, before you judge anyone, you have to, no, it's not walk a mile in their shoes. It's like put their skin on and walk around in it for a day. It's kind of a clunky phrase, but, it's essentially walk a mile in someone else's shoe. It's a very important lesson of someone's perspective, seeing something from someone else's point of view, and Scout uses that a lot throughout the book. So that's a huge reason why he's on this list, an important lesson of perspective. And also teaching his kids that you have to do what's right even though it can be unpopular, because Atticus Finch, he defends a man, Tom Robinson, who is accused of raping a white woman. Okay, and this is in like the 1930s South. So, and he has people come up to him and people, call his children really awful names. Some people spit on Atticus Finch, but he does it because he believes that it is the right thing to do. Sorry about that. I had to step off because my dad was calling me. Anyway, so Atticus, he made the list just because of his lessons he taught his child and of his children, and how he really showed them that it was important to do the right thing, even though it can be hard. Okay, number 7, we have Bob Cratchit from A Christmas Carol. Okay, so Christmas Carol is one of my favorite stories ever. I watch the Muppet Christmas Carol every month. Maybe not every month, but I'll watch it any month of the year. So I love the story of A Christmas Carol. I've listened to the audiobook where Tim Curry is narrating, which is awesome. So Bob Cratchit, and I guess my main reason for picking this is Kermit the Frog's depiction. But he is just such a gentle soul. He cares about everyone around him. Like Mr. Scrooge is really a horrible boss, like toxic boss for sure. And Bob Cratchit still has a lot of sympathy for him. Bob and his family are going through a hard time. His son, Timmy, is sick. But he just really shows up with this love and this, consideration for other people and this joy for life, even though they have it hard. Like they're rather poor, and his son is very, very sick. So but even despite all that, he shows a positive attitude, and even in like I guess it's the flash forwards, or like what could happen if Scrooge doesn't change his ways even after their son dies. He still finds joy, and he's like, we'll always remember him. He was important, and the impact he had on our lives was great. And, we should be happy that we got to experience it instead of sad. So he just really teaches his children about sympathy and love and consideration. So that is why he is on this list. All right, number 6. We have a physical copy here. We have 2 people actually. They are not a couple, but they are both the father figures for this character. And this is the Chronicles of Prydain. So if anyone has ever seen the Black Cauldron, which if you look on any like Disney movie list, it's the one that flopped at the box office and it like terrified children. Well, it's actually based on a really awesome series. I love this series. I reread the whole thing about 2 or 3 times per year. So it's called the Chronicles of Prydain. And in it, we have our main character, Taran. And he just wants to be a hero. He wants the glory of battle. He wants everything. He's an orphan. He was adopted by Dalbin, who is a wizard, warlock. I can't remember what they call him. And then there is Cole, who is the farmer. He's the farmhand there. And together, Talbot and Cole teach him that it's not all about glory. And they say, hey, you're thinking about charging into battle, but think what it's like to lose your life or friend's life, and that it's really not as glorious as it is in stories. And every time, so basically how every book starts is they're at Caer Dalbin, which is the name of their little estate, and Tarn's wishing for some adventure, and something happens, and either Dalbin or Cole or both of them give him a little bit of advice, and he kind of brushes it off. But as the books go on, he's more mature. Like his problems become a bit different and a bit more mature. They're not just like, ugh, you're so annoying, kid. Like, he gets better as a character. And then he has to rush off to have an adventure, and on his adventure, he's always like, I wish I was back with Cole and Dalbin. And he's like, they were right. So when I say Cole and Dalbin, they're not a couple, but they do help raise Taran. So this is an excellent series. I really wish, because Disney is remaking everything under the sun, I wish they would give this a remake. They would give this a chance, either a movie or a series. That would be fantastic. I mean, if Harry Potter and Twilight is getting a reboot, tell me why this doesn't deserve one. Tell me why. Anyway, so that is number 6 for us. Okay, number 5, and I apologize, I'm probably pronouncing this wrong. It's Zygmunt from The Wolf and the Woodsmen. I'm going to talk about this book in depth on my June wrap-up. I absolutely loved this book, but it has a lot of like Eastern European kind of Hebrew names, and I always have trouble pronouncing those. But I think I would pronounce his name Zygmunt. But Zygmunt, so the not the issue, but how this character plays about, is we have our main character, Evika, and she's a pagan girl, and in this world, they're not Christians. It's supposed to, everything is alluded to in Eastern European and medieval history, so there's what we would call Christians. Zygmunt is part of what would be the Jewish people, and then Evika, her father is Zygmunt, so she would be half Jewish, and then also pagan, indigenous religions. So they come from cultural backgrounds, Zygmunt and Evika's mother. So he would visit them a couple times a year, and then Evika's mother was taken away, and the villagers did not like Zygmunt's people. They're called the Yuli. They didn't like him. They didn't like that Evika's mother had a child with him. So they told Zygmunt that his daughter had died, that they had like abandoned her in the woods because she no longer had a mother to look after them. But halfway through the book, Evika, she meets up with Zygmunt, and she's like, I'm your daughter. And at first he's a little bit shocked. Like, he's been living alone because Evika's mother died. So he's been kind of reeling from that loss for like 10 years. But then he starts to teach her about his culture, like he welcomes her in. And at first she thought, I'll never be a part of these people's lives. I just don't belong anywhere. But he starts teaching them about his culture. And he really just takes on that role. He's like, I know you're grown and I know you've been through a lot without me, but I'm just really wanting to be in your life in any way I can. He protects her, he teaches her things. Like he kind of does a crash course in all the years that they missed. And he allows it to happen on her terms. Like he doesn't try to force her to do one thing one way or the other, but he just wants to be a part of her life. And just the warmth that it described, how he like teaches her how to read, um, and like what would be Hebrew characters, but they call it Yuli characters, about their people, their religion, everything like that. And it was just, it really, because this is a grim book, but that part was kind of like a shining light in all the darkness. So that was really awesome. So he is number 5 on this list. Number 4 is going to be Clara's dad from Flowerheart. Now, I only read this once, and I tried to look it up on the internet, but I could not find the name of her dad, and I didn't remember it being mentioned anywhere. So he's just Clara's dad. So the basic plot of Flowerheart is that they live in a world with magic, and Clara, she has magic, but she can't control it. Like it's very tied to her emotions. Like she'll get angry or scared, and like flowers will pop up everywhere. And the council of witches and wizards, they're gonna take away her magic. And then one day Clara just gets really upset and she accidentally, like she has no intention of hurting her father, but she basically poisons him where like flowers are growing out of him and like there's vines in his heart, like not good. But even though like his daughter has done things that have kind of like destroyed their house or hurt him before, but never this bad, he's always like, your magic is such a gift. I would never want that part of you to be taken away from you. And then we learn that Clara's mother was not in her life. Her mother was kind of what they would call like a wild witch. She didn't like the regulations that were on magic, so she abandoned her family. And Claire just talks about how her dad steps up in every way to account for the fact that Clara doesn't have two parents, and he fills those roles with love and kindness. And it's just, even though we don't get his name, half of the story we're trying to figure out how to save him, and you can just tell by the way Clara talks, like how much love this man has given her. So that is why he is on this list. Okay, number 3, we have Nelson from Under the Whispering Door. So Nelson is a grandfather in this to one of the main characters. So this book is by T.J. Klune, who I absolutely love. Um, and in this book, we have our main character Wallace, who, and this isn't a spoiler, this happens on like the first page or the first chapter. Wallace dies, and he goes to this kind of way station to help him cross into like not the underworld. They don't kind of go that much with it, but kind of like to move on to the next plane of existence. And Nelson is there. He is also a ghost. It's his grandson, Hugo, who runs the way station. And Nelson really, his love for his grandson is unreal, just the kindness he shows. You learn that Hugo's parents died a little bit before he became, the person that runs the way station. And Nelson talks about really he wants to go to this other place because it is they're pretty sure that he'll see his wife again who has passed and his son who died. But he stays around to help Hugo because he knows Hugo needs him. Hugo's father has died, but he stays around to help Hugo. So really just pure love there. He's kind of putting off his like eternal happiness, seeing the people he loves again to make sure his grandson is okay. And then Nelson also helps Wallace. He kind of helps him, like, this is how you be a ghost and learn some lessons about what was wrong with his life and, things he needs to accept. And then Wallace and Hugo kind of have this romance going on, and Nelson is kind of pushing them both in it and kind of like the cute, meddling grandfather type way, like, he would be great for you. And Nelson's like a smart ass, and I love it. So he is an awesome father figure, grandfather, father, whichever you want to say. All right, then we have number 2, and this would be Linus and Arthur, Arthur, from the House in the Cerulean Sea. Fun fact, this is my favorite book of all time. I love this book so much. So the premise of this book, and by the way, I don't know if you can see it, but it's just, look at that. That's so beautiful. So Arthur is a character. He has an orphanage. It's in a world where magical creatures exist, but they're second class citizens. Like, they have to register as a magical person, and there are orphanages for magical creatures, children who aren't being raised by their parents. And it kind of, I insinuated that it's a common thing because I guess, like, there's a lot of creatures and things that were hunted or murdered. Like, they're citizens, but they're not being well protected, right? So Arthur, he runs this orphanage, and he runs, like, it's like a class 5 or something. It's like there's the Antichrist, the kid is there. There's like this blob creature that no one knows what it is. There's this gnome. There's a pixie. There's a wyvern. Like, there's this like wide diversity of kids who are like top 5, like, and most people don't even know it exists because it's so hidden because they don't want anyone to know about it. But he takes these children who have just really been pushed out of society completely, and he gives them love. He understands that all of them have trauma in different ways, and he does whatever he can to help them through it. So he is an excellent father figure. Then we have Linus, who comes in. Linus is a social worker, and the Department of, like, magic registration. I can't remember what it's called. I think it's Decomony or something is the acronym for it. But he's a social worker, and they don't know if Arthur is really running the orphanage like he should. And Linus is being sent to document and observe, and to report back on whether Arthur should continue being the head of the orphanage. And Linus, he's very, like, he cares about children, but he's like, there's a professional line. I should not really interact with these kids. I'm just an observer. And he meets these kids, and, he falls in love with them. He tries to help expand their world and get the local village to, like, treat them with respect and be like, hey, these are people too, and they deserve to be treated with just as respect as any other people. And then him and Arthur have a little bit of a romance. So with Cole and Dolben, it wasn't a romance, but with Linus and Arthur, it is. So this is, like I said, this is my favorite book of all time. It's also by T.J. Klune. Check it out. And it's funny, and it's sweet, it's cozy, and it really just has the greatest found family trope ever, in my opinion. Okay, then we have number 1, which I thought I didn't have this book anymore, but I went to my dad's and found some of my old books that I left there when I moved out, and I found it. So we have Hans from the Book Thief as our number 1 awesome book dad. So the story of the Book Thief, it's a girl named Liesel. This is in 1940s Germany, so World War II. When the book opens, the war is about to start. So it's like 1938, 1939. And she is being put up for adoption. Later we find out her mom is a communist, and, Liesel's kind of put into the foster care system because Liesel's mother is about to be taken away. And we meet the Hubermans. We have Hans and Rosa. And Rosa's really stern. I did talk about her in my Awesome Moms video if you want to check that out. But Hans, he is just sweet instantly. He tries to do whatever he can to make Liesel feel better because her first night at home, obviously, he's like, you must be missing your mom. And she was supposed to come with a brother, but her brother died of sickness on the way. So she's reeling from all sorts of loss. And he plays his accordion for her, and she instantly warms up to the idea of calling him Papa. And he plays the accordion for her, and he eventually teaches her how to read, which is like one of the greatest gifts that she's ever received, is learning how to read. So they just have this bond that is just really, really beautiful. And even though they're not related, like, it's love. It's father-daughter love. And eventually they hide a Jewish young man, and Hans kind of teaches her that, we have to help people, even though, it could get us in trouble. Like, we have a duty to this family because Hans served in World War I, and the man they hide, Max, his father served with Hans, and Max's dad saved Hans' life. And Hans promised Max's mother, if you ever need anything, all you have to do is ask. And so, once there's all this anti-Jewish legislation and everything starts happening with the Holocaust, she's like, can you please hide my son? So he does, and he's like, I have to, like, I owe this family everything. And he does other little things the throughout the book that shows us that he teaches Liesel it's better to do the right thing even though you might suffer a little bit. Like Hans, the family has a lot of big issues with poverty, and it talks about as the war goes on, like everyone was suffering, food rations and stuff like that. But Hans isn't able to get a decent job because he refuses to join the Nazi party. And then later he gets conscripted because where they're at is Munich, I think, and Munich is close to where the concentration camp Dachau was, and so the prisoners, and I don't know if this happened historically or not. Um, I know this author, his family, he's Australian, but his family grew up in Germany during World War II, I remember. And so they would parade the concentration camp prisoners like on their way from wherever to Dachau, and Hans like gave a prisoner food. So they put him on a list. They thought he was gonna get taken away, but he just gets conscripted into the army. So he repeatedly teaches her. He teaches her all these important lessons to read, which is a passion in her life. And I'm like getting teared up because it's just such a beautiful relationship that emulates what a true father is. And it doesn't matter if it's by DNA, adoption, someone who you found in your life. It's just amazing to have a awesome father figure and to see those represented in such a good way in literature. All right, that does it for today. Thank you so much for watching this videos, and feel free to list your favorite dad in literature on here. What are some awesome dads in literature that you want me to check out? And I just want to say happy Father's Day to all the fathers, father figures, all of that out there. All right, have a great day, everyone. Bye.